Child, the kitchen smelled of onions and garlic that evening, the kind of homey scent that once wrapped around my heart like a warm shawl. My husband, Robert, stood at the stove, stirring the pot with that absent smile he wore lately, the one that didn't quite reach his eyes when he looked at me. The kids were out, grown and gone, leaving the house too quiet for my liking. I was setting the table, my hands moving on their own after years of the same routine, when his phone buzzed on the counter. He didn't glance at it, too focused on the sauce, but I did. The screen lit up, "I miss you." From her, his coworker, the one with the laugh that echoed too long at office parties. My heart stuttered, a cold wave washing over me. "Miss you?" In our home, while he cooked our supper, the injustice of it burned slow, like embers under ash. After all these years, all the giving, this whisper of betrayal right here in our sacred space. I picked up the phone, fingers trembling but resolve hardening like clay in fire. He didn't notice. I typed back, "Come over," simple words heavy with the storm they'd unleash. Sent. She arrived quick, knocking soft as if she belonged. Robert's face went white when he opened the door, spoon still in hand. "What?" he stammered. She stepped in, all smiles turning to confusion, eyes darting to me in the shadows. I stood there, arms crossed, voice steady but cracking inside. "You miss him." Well, here he is, in his home, with his wife. The air thickened, silence heavy as unspoken secrets. She mumbled excuses, fled like a shadow. Robert turned to me, eyes wide. "Evelyn, it's not." But it was, the start of the unraveling. That night, words flew like shards, accusations, denials, tears, but deeper, it cracked open the vault of hurts I'd buried. Injustice not just in that text, but in the slow fate of us. How had it come to this, me, inviting the storm to blow it all apart? Stories like mine build from the bones up, from the girl who learned early that love demands blood. Let me take you back, to the dust and dreams of my early days, where sacrifice first took root. Oh, child, sit close and let this old voice carry you back to the days when the world was wide and hard, and a girl learned too soon what it meant to give until there was almost nothing left to give. I was born Evelyn Rose in the spring of 1949, in a little shotgun house on the edge of a cotton field in rural Georgia, where the red clay stained everything it touched. Your shoes, your hem, your hands, your heart. Daddy was a tenant farmer, sharecropping land that belonged to a white man who never once set foot on it, but took half of whatever the soil managed to yield. Mama had already buried 2 babies before I came along, and she would bury one more after. We were poor in the way that sits in your bones, the kind that makes you flinch at the sound of an empty cupboard door. There were 6 of us living children by the time I was old enough to remember, me the third, right in the middle, not old enough to escape chores, not young enough to be spared them. Daddy left before the roosters crowed, walking miles to the fields with a hoe over his shoulder and a jug of water that would be warm and tasting of rust by noon. Mama kept the house, the garden, the wash, the cooking, the mending, and all of us with hands that never stopped moving. Her fingers were always cracked and bleeding from lye soap and bleach water, but she'd still thread a needle by lamplight to patch another knee or elbow. "Waste not, want not," she'd say, voice soft but firm, like she was reminding herself more than us. I started helping before I knew what helping meant. At 4, I was rocking the baby on my hip while Mama stirred supper. At 6, I was gathering eggs and feeding chickens, careful not to let the mean rooster spur me. At 8, I was out in the rows with Daddy on Saturdays, chopping cotton, my small hands blistering around the handle of a hoe too big for me. School was only when the crop was laid by, and even then I'd miss days to help Mama with wash days, hauling water from the well, boiling it in the big black pot over an open fire, scrubbing on a rub board till my knuckles bled. The white ladies in town paid Mama $1 for a whole week's wash, and she'd send me to deliver it, walking 3 miles each way in shoes with cardboard stuffed in the soles to cover the holes. I loved school when I could go. I loved the smell of chalk dust and the way the teacher's voice rose and fell like music. I was quick with numbers and quicker with words, and the teacher said I had promise. But promise don't fill empty bellies. When I was 12, the boll weevils came and ate half the cotton, and what was left barely paid the furnish bill at the Crossroads store. Daddy came home one evening with his shoulders more stooped than usual and said, "Evelyn, you'll have to quit school and help your mama full time." Just like that. No discussion. I cried that night into my pillow so the little ones wouldn't hear, but I was at the wash tub the next morning before sunrise. By 14, I was hiring out to white families in town, cleaning houses, minding babies, ironing dresses that cost more than our family made in a month. I'd leave the house at 5 in the morning, walk the 4 miles to the bus stop, ride into town, work till 6 or 7 at night, ride back, and walk home in the dark. The white ladies liked me because I was quiet and thorough. "You're a good girl, Evelyn," they'd say, pressing a quarter into my hand like it was gold. I'd smile and say, "Thank you, ma'am," while inside something twisted. Those quarters bought flour, fatback, and shoes for my little brothers. I never kept a penny for myself. That's how the sacrificing started, child. Not with grand gestures, but with the slow drip of giving away pieces of yourself until you hardly recognize what's left. I learned early that love meant putting yourself last. Mama taught it, Daddy lived it, and the world demanded it. I didn't resent it then. I thought that's just how it was for girls like me. At 17, I met Robert at the county fair. He was 20, tall and broad-shouldered, with a laugh that made people turn and look. He worked at the sawmill and had big dreams of owning his own garage one day. He bought me a Coca-Cola, and we sat under the oak trees talking till the lights came on. He said I had pretty eyes and a kind heart. I believed him. We courted proper walks after church, letters when he was working out of town, stolen kisses behind the barn. His mama didn't approve. She's just a field hand's daughter, but Robert stood firm. We married in the spring of 1968, me in a simple white dress mama sewed from remnant lace, him in a borrowed suit. The preacher said for better or worse, and I believed that too. The worse came quick. We rented a tiny apartment over the dry goods store, one room with a hot plate and a bathroom down the hall. Robert worked long hours at the mill, coming home smelling of sawdust and sweat. I kept cleaning houses and took in ironing at night. When I found out I was expecting Anna in late, 68, joy and terror hit at the same time. We had $43 in the bank and rent due. But I rubbed my belly and whispered to the life inside, "I'll make it right for you, little one. I'll give you what I never had." Anna came screaming into the world in July 1969, red-faced and perfect. I held her and cried, not just from the pain, but from the fierce love that flooded me. Robert was proud, showing her off to everyone, but the bills started piling. Diapers, formula when my milk didn't come in strong enough, doctor visits. I went back to cleaning houses 6 weeks after she was born, leaving her with Mama when I could, or strapping her to my chest in a sling while I scrubbed floors. My body never really recovered, back aches that still plague me, feet that swell in the heat, but I kept going. Ben arrived 2 years later, big and loud from the start. By then Robert had moved to the auto plant in the next county, better pay but longer hours and night shifts. I was alone most days and nights with 2 babies under 3. I'd rock one while the other cried, cook with one on my hip, bathe them in the kitchen sink because the tub was too hard to bend over. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. Some nights I'd sit on the back steps after they finally went down, staring at the stars and wondering if this was all there was ever going to be. But then morning would come, and I'd pull myself up again. Resilience wasn't a choice, it was survival. Clara came in 1974, small and sickly from the beginning. Asthma, ear infections, fevers that scared me half to death. The medical bills ate every extra dime. I took a second job waitressing nights at the truck stop, coming home at 2 in the morning to nurse Clara, then up at 5 to get the older ones ready for school. Robert was climbing at the plant, lead man now, then supervisor, but his climb meant more responsibility, more late meetings, more time away. I told myself it was for us, for the kids, for the better life we were building. I swallowed the loneliness, the exhaustion, the quiet resentment that started to grow when he'd come home too tired to talk, too distracted to notice the new gray in my hair or the way my hands shook from too much coffee and too little sleep. The sacrifices piled up like cordwood. I made their clothes from feed sack patterns, cut Anna's hair myself when beauty shop money was short, walked to the grocery instead of driving to save gas. I missed my own doctor visits so Clara could see the specialist. I skipped meals so the children could have seconds. I gave up dreams I didn't even know I still had, maybe taking night classes, maybe learning to type, maybe just having one day where nobody needed anything from me. Every dollar I earned went into the family pot. Every minute of rest I could have taken went to folding laundry or mending or planning the next week's meals around what was on sale. There were moments of joy, bright as fireworks in the dark. Anna's first steps, Ben's first home run, Clara's first full sentence without wheezing. Robert bringing home a television on layaway so we could watch the moon landing together. Christmas mornings when the kids' eyes lit up over gifts I'd saved for all year. But those moments were islands in a sea of giving, giving, giving until my cup was empty and I was pouring from memory. Emotional struggles? Lord, they were constant companions. The fear that I wasn't enough, pretty enough, smart enough, strong enough. The guilt when I lost patience and snapped at the children. The ache when Robert looked past me to the newspaper or the TV. The nights I cried into the dishwater because I was so bone-tired I didn't know how I'd face another day, but I never let them see. I smiled, I soothed, I kept going. That's what mothers do, I told myself. That's what good wives do. Bend but don't break. Give until it hurts and then give some more. By the time the children were in school full-time, I was 30 but felt 50. My hands were rough as pine bark, my back ached constant, and there were lines around my eyes that no cream could soften. Robert was making good money now, talking about buying a house with a yard, maybe taking a vacation someday. I nodded and smiled, but inside something had started to hollow out. I had given so much for so long that I wasn't sure where they ended and I began. I had become the woman who made everything possible for everyone else, and somewhere along the way, I disappeared into that role. Looking back now, child, I see it clear. Those years of sacrifice weren't just about keeping bellies full and shoes on feet. They were about slowly, quietly erasing myself for the sake of love. I thought that was noble. I thought that was what women were supposed to do. I didn't know yet that love shouldn't cost your whole soul. I didn't know that giving everything away doesn't guarantee you'll be treasured in return. All I knew was the next load of wash, the next meal to cook, the next bill to pay, the next ache to hide. And so the years rolled on, the children growing taller while I grew smaller inside, the house getting nicer while the space for me in it got tighter. The slow fade had begun, though I couldn't see it yet. The disappearance was already underway, quiet as footsteps in fresh snow. But that's a story for another part, child. The erasure comes softer than you expect, and by the time you notice, you're already half gone. Child, erasure don't come with trumpets or thunder. It comes soft, like dust settling on a shelf you once polished every day, until one morning you look up and realize you can't even see the wood underneath anymore. By the time the children were teenagers, our life looked good from the outside. Nice brick house in a quiet subdivision, 2 cars in the driveway, Robert wearing a tie to work most days, me with a washer and dryer that didn't require quarters. We had made it, or so folks said. But inside those walls, I was already starting to fade, like a photograph left too long in the sun. It began with little things, so small I barely noticed them at first. Family dinners, for instance. I'd spend the afternoon chopping and stirring, making Robert's favorite pot roast or fried chicken the way his mama taught me, setting the table with the good dishes because I still believed in making ordinary days feel special. The kids would come in from school or practice, Robert from the plant, and we'd sit down together. But the talk flowed around me, not to me or through me. Robert would tell about his day, some new machine on the line, a funny thing one of the guys said, a problem he solved that earned him a pat on the back from the supervisor. The children hung on his words, laughing in the right places, asking questions. Anna wanted to know about the new computers they were installing. Ben asked about engines and horsepower. Even little Clara, quiet as she was, leaned forward when Daddy spoke. I'd wait for a pause, thinking I'd slip in something about my day, maybe how I'd helped the neighbor lady with her garden, or a letter I got from Mama, or something funny one of the children had said when they were small. But the pause never quite came long enough. Someone would jump in with another question for Robert, or the phone would ring, or Ben would start arguing with Anna about whose turn it was to wash dishes. My words stayed trapped behind my teeth. After a while, I stopped trying to find the pause. I just listened, nodded, passed the potatoes when asked. I told myself it was good they admired their father. I told myself a quiet house was a peaceful house. I told myself a lot of things. Birthdays were another place the fading showed. Robert's always got planned weeks ahead, his favorite cake, a new tool set or fishing rod, a party with his buddies from work. The kids made cards, I cooked his favorite meal. Mine. Sometimes there was a card on the table when I came down to make coffee, sometimes a hurried, happy birthday, Mom, over cereal bowls before everyone rushed out the door. One year, Robert forgot entirely until I was washing supper dishes and he suddenly said, "Oh Lord, Ev, it's your birthday, isn't it?" He felt bad, took me to the diner for pie, but the hurt had already settled in my chest like a stone. I smiled and said it was fine. I was used to fine. His mama started coming over more often after his daddy passed. She'd sit in my kitchen, the one I scrubbed every week on my hands and knees, drinking coffee I poured, telling me how I should arrange the cabinets or season the greens. "Robert likes them cooked longer," she'd say, "or you ought to use more fat back." I'd nod and say yes ma'am, even when I knew Robert liked them just the way I fixed them. She'd talk about how hard he worked, how he carried the family, how lucky I was. The children listened to her like she was handing down wisdom from on high. I'd clear the table while they talked, feeling like the maid in my own house. Robert's job kept getting better: promotions, raises, bonuses. He started staying later for meetings, going in on Saturdays just to catch up. He'd come home tired but proud, telling stories about the office, about the secretaries and the engineers and the new accounts. One name started coming up more than others: Linda, the new administrative assistant. "Linda's sharp as a tack," he'd say. "Linda figured out that billing error. Linda brought in donuts today." I'd smile and ask questions because that's what a good wife does, but something in the way he said her name made my stomach tighten just a little. I pushed the feeling down. I had no cause to doubt him, I told myself. He was a good provider, a good father when he was home. He still kissed me goodnight most evenings, still called me hun in front of the children. I was imagining things. Tired women imagine things. The children grew taller and busier. Anna got her driver's license and a part-time job at the mall. Ben played football and ran with a crowd of boys who thought curfew was a suggestion. Clara buried herself in books and art classes. They came and went like wind through the house, leaving trails of shoes and jackets and half-eaten snacks. I was the one who picked up after them, who washed their uniforms, who sat up waiting when they were late. Robert would be asleep, saying, "They're good kids, Ev, let them be." I'd sit in the dark living room, heart pounding every time headlights swept across the curtains, wondering when I became the worrier and he became the easy one. Respect started slipping away in small measures. Anna would roll her eyes when I asked where she was going. Ben would mutter, "Yes, ma'am," in a tone that made it sound like a curse. Clara, sweetest of them, would sigh when I reminded her about chores. Robert backed them up more often than not. "They're just kids," he'd say. "Lighten up." I began to feel like the enemy in my own home, the one who enforced rules while everyone else had fun. Holidays became another stage for the slow vanishing. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, I'd plan for weeks, shop sales, cook for days. Robert's mama would arrive with her special dishes and take over the kitchen like she owned it. The children gravitated to her stories about when Robert was little, how he was always the smartest, the strongest, the best. I'd serve the food I'd cooked, clear the plates, wash the mountain of dishes while they laughed in the living room. Someone might say thank you, but mostly they didn't notice. One Christmas stands out sharp in my memory. I'd saved all year for special gifts. Anna a necklace she'd been eyeing, Ben new cleats, Clara an expensive set of oil paints. I wrapped them careful, put them under the tree I'd decorated alone. Christmas morning, the children tore into their presents, squealed over what Robert gave them: a car for Anna to share, a new television for the den. My gifts got polite thanks, quick hugs. Robert handed me a box, a new iron. "Practical," he said. I needed one. I smiled and said it was just what I wanted. Later, alone in the laundry room, I cried over that iron until my eyes burned. The phone calls started changing too. When the children called from college or their new apartments, they asked for Robert first. "Is Dad home?" Even when they talked to me, it was quick money needed, advice on classes, updates on their lives. They rarely asked how I was. When I tried to tell them about my day, about the garden I'd planted or the book club I joined, their attention drifted. "That's nice, Mom," they'd say, already moving on. Robert's late nights increased. "Project deadlines," he said. "Big account." He'd come home smelling of restaurant food and something floral I didn't recognize. I'd heat up his plate, sit with him while he ate, trying to draw him out. But his stories were all about work, about Linda's efficiency, Linda's ideas, Linda staying late to help. I'd feel that tightness again, but I'd push it down. Good wives trust their husbands. I started keeping more to myself. I'd sit on the back porch in the evenings after dishes were done, watching the sun go down, feeling the quiet settle around me like a blanket. I began to notice how little space I took up in conversations, in decisions, in the family's daily rhythm. Robert planned vacations, where we'd go, how long, what we'd do. The children planned their futures, colleges, careers, dreams. I was the constant, the assumed. Mom'll take care of it. Mom doesn't mind. Mom's always here. I tried once to speak up. We were planning Anna's graduation party, and I suggested keeping it small, just family and close friends. Robert waved me off. "We're doing it big, she deserves it." His mama chimed in about inviting half the town. The children agreed. My voice disappeared into the noise. I went along, cooked for days, cleaned for weeks before and after. No one noticed how tired I was. The coworker, Linda, started appearing in person. First at company picnics, then holiday parties. She was younger, pretty in that effortless way, with a laugh that carried across rooms. She'd hug Robert a little too long, touch his arm when she talked. I'd watch from across the lawn or the banquet hall, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. People would say, "Your husband's doing so well, and you must be proud." And I'd smile and nod while inside I felt smaller and smaller. I began to dread social events. I'd stand beside Robert while he talked to groups of people, shining in the center of attention. They'd ask him questions, laugh at his jokes. Sometimes someone would turn to me and say, "And what do you do?" I'd say, "I take care of the house and family," and they'd nod politely and turn back to Robert. After a while, I stopped going to some events. Robert didn't seem to mind. "Whatever makes you comfortable, hun." The children's visits home became performances around their father. They'd bring laundry for me to do, meals for me to cook, but their real excitement was showing Robert their report cards, their new cars, their plans. I'd listen from the kitchen, drying dishes that were already dry, feeling like a ghost in my own life. One night stands out clear as yesterday. It was Clara's senior year art show. I'd helped her mat and frame every piece, driven her to classes, paid for supplies out of my grocery money. Show was beautiful, her work hung under soft lights, people murmuring admiration. Robert was late getting there, some work emergency. When he finally arrived, he made an entrance, shaking hands, charming everyone. Suddenly the attention shifted to him, how proud he must be, what a good father. Clara beamed at his praise. I stood to the side, holding programs, invisible again. On the drive home, Robert talked about how talented Clara was, how she got it from his side of the family. Clara agreed. I stared out the window at passing streetlights, feeling the erasure settle deeper. I had poured years into that girl, doctor's visits, late-night talks about her fears, money scraped for lessons, and now even her talent belonged to someone else. By then, I had almost stopped expecting to be seen. I moved through my days like a shadow, cooking, cleaning, listening, giving. My opinions didn't matter. My tiredness didn't matter. My dreams, if I still had any, didn't matter. I had become the woman who made everything possible for everyone else, and in doing so, I had slowly, quietly disappeared. People outside the family still saw me, of course. Neighbors waved, church ladies asked after me, but inside my own walls, I was fading fast. Robert's attentions turned elsewhere. The children built lives that didn't need me in the center anymore. Even the house seemed to belong more to them than to me. The furniture Robert picked, the decorations his mama suggested, the schedules built around everyone's needs but mine. I look back now and see how complete the erasure was. Not dramatic, not sudden, just 1,000 small moments of being overlooked, overridden, assumed. 1,000 times my voice went unheard. 1,000 times my efforts went unacknowledged. 1,000 times I shrank a little more to make room for everyone else. The text message years later, "I miss you," wasn't the beginning of the betrayal. It was just the moment the fog finally cleared enough for me to see how far I'd already vanished. The real disappearance had been happening for decades, quiet as breathing, steady as a heartbeat. And by the time I noticed, I was barely there at all. But noticing, child, even when it hurts something fierce, is the first step toward finding your way back. Though the path is long and lonely, and some parts of you never quite return. Child, being left behind ain't like a door slamming in your face. It's more like a slow walk away, footsteps getting fainter until you realize you're standing alone in an empty room, wondering when everyone else slipped out without a goodbye. After that night with the text message, the one where I typed "come over," and watched Robert's world crack open like an egg on the kitchen floor, things changed, but not in the big, dramatic way you see in movies. No shouting matches that shook the walls, no packing bags in a fury, just a quiet unraveling thread by thread until the whole fabric of our life came apart. Robert didn't deny it outright. He sat there at the kitchen table, face pale as dishwater, while I stood across from him with my arms crossed tight over my chest. "It's not what you think, Ev," he said, voice low and shaky. "She's just a friend. We talk sometimes." But I saw the guilt in his eyes, the way he couldn't meet mine. I didn't yell. I was too tired for yelling, too hollowed out from years of holding everything together. I just said, "You talk to her more than you talk to me, and she misses you enough to text it while you're cooking our supper." He didn't have much to say after that. The next morning, he packed a bag. "I'll go stay at the motel for a bit," he said, like he was going on a business trip. "Give us both time to think." I nodded. What else was there to do? The children found out quick. Anna called first, her voice sharp with accusation. "Mom, what did you do? Dad said you overreacted to some innocent text." Ben texted, "This is messed up, you're pushing him away." Clara was the only one who called me direct, her voice soft and worried. "Are you okay, Mom?" But even she didn't come over that week. They all rallied around him, their daddy who could do no wrong, while I, the one who'd bandaged their knees and dried their tears, became the villain in my own story. The house felt different right away. Too big, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I'd walk from room to room, touching things that belonged to a life that didn't feel mine anymore. The sofa where we'd watched TV together, the bed where we'd whispered in the dark, the kitchen table scarred from years of family meals. Everything echoed with absence. Loneliness hit me hardest at night. I'd lie in that big bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick away the hours. No one to talk to about my day, no one to laugh with over nothing, no one to warm the sheets beside me. Some nights I'd cry until my pillow was soaked, raw sobs that came from deep in my chest, the kind that leave you empty and aching. Mornings were no better. I'd wake up reaching for him, only to find cold sheets. Breakfast was coffee and toast for one, eaten standing at the counter because sitting at the empty table hurt too much. The phone stayed silent, no calls from Robert checking in, no texts from the kids asking how I was holding up. Just silence, heavy and accusing. I felt it then, the injustice of it all burning low in my belly. After decades of sacrifice, giving up my dreams, my rest, my own needs so they could have everything, here I was, discarded like an old coat that didn't fit anymore. They'd all moved on with their lives, leaving me behind to rattle around in the house that used to hold us all. The first few weeks blurred together in a fog of hurt. I barely left the house. Neighbors noticed, of course, they always do. Mrs. Jenkins from next door brought over a casserole, her eyes full of pity. "Heard about Robert, dear, you'll be all right." I smiled and thanked her, but inside I wanted to scream that I wasn't all right, that nothing about this felt right. Friends from church called, offering to pray or sit with me. I said no thank you. I wasn't ready to talk about it, to admit how deep the wound went. Instead, I cleaned. Lord, did I clean. I scrubbed floors that didn't need scrubbing, dusted shelves already spotless, organized closets full of clothes that smelled like him. It was something to do, something to keep my hands busy so my mind wouldn't spin with questions. Why wasn't I enough? What did I do wrong? How did we get here? But cleaning only goes so far. One afternoon, about a month in, I sat down on the living room floor with a box of old photos, wedding pictures, baby snapshots, family vacations. I spread them out like a map of our life, tracing the years with my finger. There I was, young and smiling, holding Anna as a newborn, Robert beside me, arm around my waist. There we were at Ben's first birthday, cake smeared on everyone's faces. Clara's kindergarten graduation, her little hand in mine. The memories flooded back, sweet and sharp, like thorns hidden in roses. I cried over those pictures, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body, not just for what was lost, but for the woman in them, the one who gave everything and thought it would be enough. That's when the loneliness really sank its teeth in. It wasn't just missing Robert or the children's noise. It was missing me, the me I used to be before I disappeared into wife and mother. I didn't know who I was anymore without them needing me every minute. I'd spent so long being everything for everyone else that I'd forgotten how to be anything for myself. The house felt like a tomb, full of echoes and shadows. I stopped cooking proper meals, just cereal or soup from a can. What was the point? I lost weight, my clothes hanging loose. Sleep came in fits, nightmares of empty rooms and closed doors. The children's blame made it worse. Anna came over once, eyes flashing. "You drove him away, Mom. He's miserable at that motel." Ben called to yell about how I was ruining the family. Even Clara, gentle Clara, said softly over the phone, "Maybe you overreacted. Dad says it was nothing." I didn't argue. What good would it do? They saw me as the problem, not the man who'd betrayed our vows. Their words cut deep, reopening wounds I didn't know were still raw. I felt like a stranger in my own family, left behind not just by Robert, but by the children I'd raised with my own hands. Robert called a few times, voice careful and distant. "How are you holding up?" he'd ask, like I was a neighbor recovering from the flu. I'd say fine, because that's what I always said. He talked about getting his own apartment near work, closer to the plant, he said, but I knew it was closer to her. He didn't ask to come home. I didn't invite him. We were like two people who used to know each other, polite strangers now. One day, I couldn't take the emptiness anymore. I drove to Mama's old house, the little place she left me when she passed. It was 40 minutes away, a small cottage with a porch and a garden gone wild. I hadn't been there in years, too busy with family life. I unlocked the door, dust motes dancing in the sunlight that streamed through the windows. It smelled like old wood and memories, Mama's lavender soap, Daddy's pipe tobacco. I sat in her rocking chair and cried again, but these tears felt different. Cleansing, almost, that cottage became my refuge. I started going there weekends, fixing it up slow. I painted the walls a soft yellow like sunshine. I planted flowers in the garden, roses and marigolds, the kind Mama loved. I'd sit on the porch with a cup of tea, watching birds at the feeder I hung. For the first time in decades, I was alone but not lonely. The quiet wasn't empty, it was peaceful. I started reading again, books I'd loved as a girl, stories of women finding their way. I walked the woods behind the house, feeling the earth under my feet, breathing air that wasn't full of other people's needs. Self-discovery came in small pieces, like puzzle bits falling into place. I joined a quilting group at the community center near the cottage. 8 women, most widows or divorced, sitting around tables piecing scraps into beauty. They didn't ask questions at first, just handed me fabric and showed me stitches. But over coffee and cookies, stories came out, losses, heartbreaks, new beginnings. You find yourself when everything else falls away, one said, patting my hand. I nodded, feeling something stir inside me. I took a painting class next. I'd always loved colors but never had time. My first picture was terrible, a lopsided landscape, but the teacher said, "It's yours and that's what matters." I hung it in the cottage, the first thing that was just mine. I started journaling too, writing down thoughts I'd never spoken aloud, the resentments, the joys, the dreams I'd buried. Words flowed like water after a dam breaks. I wrote about childhood in the fields, about raising 3 children on sheer will, about loving a man who stopped seeing me. It hurt, but it healed too. Loneliness still came in waves, especially holidays. Thanksgiving that first year, I cooked a small meal at the cottage, just enough for me. I set the table with Mama's china, lit a candle, and ate while watching the leaves fall. It was sad, yes, but peaceful. No arguments, no expectations, just me and my thoughts. Christmas was harder. The kids didn't invite me over, said it was awkward with Robert there. I decorated a tiny tree, baked cookies for the quilting ladies, watched old movies by the fire. Tears fell, but I wiped them away. I was learning to sit with the ache, not fight it. Reclaiming autonomy felt strange at first, like wearing shoes that didn't fit right. I'd spent so long putting everyone else first that choosing for myself felt selfish. But slowly, it became natural. I bought plants for the windowsills because I liked how they made the room feel alive. I listened to music Robert hated, soft jazz that made me sway in the kitchen. I stayed up late reading, slept in on Sundays. I said no when Anna asked me to babysit her friend's kids. I'm busy that day, I said and meant it. Quiet strength grew in me like a seedling pushing through soil. I stopped jumping when the phone rang, stopped checking for messages from Robert or the children. I let their silences be their answer. When Ben called asking for money, "Just a loan, Mom?" I said no, gentle but firm. I need to take care of myself now. He was angry, hung up quick, but I felt taller after. Dignity returned, piece by piece, in the small acts of choosing me. The house, the family home, became a weight I didn't need. I listed it with a realtor, watched strangers walk through rooms full of memories. It sold quick to a young couple expecting their first baby. Packing was hard, folding clothes Robert left behind, boxing up children's trophies and school projects. I kept what mattered: photos, Mama's quilt, a few books. The rest went to charity or the kids' storage units. When closing day came, I handed over the keys and drove away without looking back. It hurt, yes, like cutting away dead weight that had been dragging me down for years. The cottage became home. Small, simple, mine. I filled it with things I loved: bookshelves groaning with novels, paintings on the walls, a rocking chair by the window. I got a part-time job at the local library, shelving books and helping children find stories. It wasn't much money, but it was mine, earned without anyone else's name on the check. I made friends, real friends, who saw me, not just what I could do for them. We'd sit on my porch drinking sweet tea, sharing stories of lives lived and loves lost. There were dark days still, nights when loneliness crept in like fog, making me question everything. What if I'd never sent that text? I'd wonder. What if I'd kept quiet like always? The injustice burned then, how after all my sacrifices, I was the one left alone. But in those moments, I'd light a candle, wrap up in Mama's quilt, and remember the girl I used to be. The one who dreamed big before life taught her to shrink. I was finding her again, bit by bit. The children came around some, visits awkward and brief. They'd look around the cottage, say it was nice, ask if I needed anything. I'd smile and say no, I was fine. And for the first time, I meant it. Robert sent divorce papers eventually, clean and simple, no fight over money or things. I signed them without tears. It was done. Being left behind broke me open, child. It shattered the woman I'd become and let the pieces fall where they would. But in that breaking, I found strength I didn't know I had. Quiet strength, the kind that doesn't shout but stands firm. Autonomy reclaimed one choice at a time. Loneliness taught me company with myself. Self-discovery showed me I was enough, just me as I was. It wasn't easy. Heartbreaking most days. But in that little cottage, with the garden blooming and books waiting, I started to feel whole again. Not the same woman who'd been left behind, but someone new. Someone who knew her worth even if others didn't. Families have a way of circling back, though, when they need something, when life gets hard again. They came knocking eventually, with their bags and their stories and their entitlement, expecting me to open the door wide like always. But this time, I was different. This time, I had boundaries. And oh, child, that made all the difference. Part 5. The penthouse and entitlement child. Claiming your own space after a lifetime of giving it away feels like drawing a breath you didn't know you'd been holding for 50 years. When the divorce settled and the old house sold, I took the money I'd saved over decades. Little bits tucked away from grocery change, birthday gifts from mama, odd jobs no one knew about, and I bought the penthouse. Top floor of a new building downtown, all glass and light, with views that stretched over the river and the city lights like a sea of stars fallen to earth. It wasn't grand for show, it was grand because it was mine. No one else's name on the deed, no one else's taste in the curtains or the furniture. Just me, choosing. I moved in slow, deliberate. Sold most of the old things, the heavy oak dining set that seated 12, the floral sofa Robert picked, the kids' childhood beds. Kept only what spoke to my heart. Mama's quilt, a few family photos in simple frames, my books, my paintings from those cottage classes. I bought new pieces that made me smile, a soft blue armchair by the window for reading, a kitchen table small enough for one but big enough for friends, plants everywhere because green things make a place feel alive. I hung wind chimes on the balcony so the breeze would sing to me. I walked barefoot on the cool hardwood floors and felt, for the first time, like I belonged somewhere because I chose it, not because I was needed there. The quiet was delicious at first. Mornings with coffee on the balcony, watching the sun rise over the water. Afternoons painting or reading, no one asking where supper was or if their shirt was ironed. Evenings with music playing soft, jazz or old hymns, whatever suited my mood, and no television blaring sports or news I didn't care about. I slept in the middle of the big bed, sheets smelling only of my lavender soap. I cooked what I wanted, small portions, new recipes from library books, or didn't cook at all and ate cereal straight from the box while watching city lights twinkle. It was freedom, child, pure and simple. The kind I'd never known I was missing until I tasted it. I made the space mine in every corner. The guest room became a studio, easel by the window, shelves of paints and brushes, canvases leaning like old friends. The second bedroom stayed empty at first, a quiet room for thinking. I put fresh flowers on every table because I could. I invited the quilting ladies over once a month for tea and gossip, and we'd sit on the balcony laughing until the stars came out. They said the place felt like peace wrapped in light. I believed them. For almost 2 years, it was sanctuary. I healed there, slow and steady. The loneliness that had choked me in the old house loosened its grip. I learned my own rhythms, when I liked to wake, when I felt most creative, when silence was companion and when it was too heavy. I took classes downtown, watercolor, pottery, even a little dance class where old ladies like me swayed to slow music and felt young again. I volunteered at the library, reading stories to children whose eyes went wide at the voices I made for dragons and princesses. I made new friends who knew me as Evelyn, not Robert's wife or the children's mother. They asked my opinions and listened to the answers. It was a small thing, being listened to, but it filled cracks I didn't know were there. Then one by one they came back. Anna first. She called out of the blue, voice thick with tears, her marriage hasty, to a man who seemed charming but turned out lazy and sharp-tongued, was falling apart. I don't have anywhere else to go, Mom, just for a little while. I heard the desperation, the little girl she used to be when thunderstorms scared her. Blood is thick, child, I said yes. She arrived with suitcases and boxes, eyes red from crying. I gave her the second bedroom, helped her unpack, cooked her favorite childhood meals. She stayed. Ben came next. Lost his job when the plant downsized, same plant Robert retired from with a pension. Economy's tough, Mom. Need a place to get back on my feet. He showed up with his duffel bag and a truck full of tools he swore he'd sell. I hesitated longer this time, remembering how quick he'd been to blame me when Robert left. But he looked worn, older than his years, and I softened. The couch in the living room became his bed. He stayed. Clara was last. Her art career, promising shows, gallery interest, had stalled. Rent in the city where she lived was eating her savings, and depression had settled heavy. I just need quiet to paint again, Mom. Your place has such good light. She came with canvases and paints and that fragile look she'd worn as a sick child. I gave her the studio, moved my easel to the balcony. She stayed. Suddenly, my sanctuary was full again. Voices in the morning, dishes piling up, laundry baskets overflowing. Television loud with Ben's games, Anna's phone calls echoing through the halls, Clara's music thumping late at night. The quiet I'd cherished vanished like mist in sunlight. They moved through my space like it had always been theirs. Feet on furniture, food eaten without replacing, plans made without asking. Entitlement crept in slow but sure. Anna started leaving her makeup all over the bathroom counter, expecting me to clean it up since you're home anyway. Ben used my car without asking, came back with the tank near empty. Clara painted in the living room when the light was better there, leaving turpentine smells and paint splatters on my hardwood floors. They'd eat the meals I cooked, because old habits die hard and barely say thank you. You're so good at this, Mom, they'd say, like it was compliment instead of assumption. I tried gentle reminders at first. Please wipe the counter after. Ask before taking the car. Let's keep paint in the studio. But my words bounced off them like rain on a tin roof. We're just temporary, Anna would say with a laugh. You don't mind, do you? Ben would grunt and keep watching TV. Clara would look hurt, like I was rejecting her art. I'd back down, swallow the irritation, tell myself it was only for a little while. Robert showed up too, eventually. Checking on the kids, he said, but his eyes lingered on the views, the new furniture, the life I'd built without him. He'd sit at my kitchen island drinking coffee I poured, talking about his small apartment, how lonely it was. You've done real nice here, Ev. I'd nod, tight-lipped, remembering the years he'd spent looking past me. He started coming more often, staying longer, acting like he still belonged. The conflicts started small but grew sharp. One night Anna announced she'd invited friends over for a girls' night, wine and music and laughter till late. I'd planned a quiet evening with a book. The noise shook the walls, glasses left everywhere. I asked them to keep it down after midnight. Anna rolled her eyes. It's just one night, Mom. You used to be fun. The words stung like salt in a cut. Ben's job search stretched months into a year. He'd spend days on the couch, tools gathering dust in the parking garage. I suggested he look harder, maybe take something temporary. He snapped, You think it's easy out there? You never worked a real job. Never worked a real job. After decades of scrubbing and cooking and raising them on nothing. I walked away before I said something I couldn't take back. Clara's depression lifted some with the good light and my quiet support, but her entitlement showed in other ways. She'd use my expensive brushes without cleaning them, borrow money for supplies until the next show. When I asked for it back, she'd cry. I thought you believed in my art. Guilt worked every time. The worst came when they started talking about the penthouse like it was communal property. Anna mentioned when we all chip in for upgrades. Ben talked about needing a permanent room for his tools. Robert even suggested moving back in, save on rent, be closer to the kids. They acted like my space, my peace, my money were resources for their comfort. The injustice of it boiled inside me, hot and bitter. I tried talking, calm, reasonable. Sat them down one Sunday morning with coffee and muffins I'd baked. This is my home, I said, voice steady though my hands shook. You're welcome as guests, but I need respect for my space, my things, my quiet. They listened, nodded, promised change. For a day or two, things improved. Then old patterns returned. Emotional intensity built like a storm gathering. Little things became big, finding Ben's dirty socks on my clean floors, Anna's friends smoking on my balcony, Clara's paints ruining a rug I loved. I'd retreat to the balcony, heart pounding, tears burning behind my eyes. How many times could I give away pieces of myself before there was nothing left? One evening it exploded. Robert was over again, sitting in my armchair like he owned it, talking about family sticking together. Anna wanted to redecorate the living room to make it cozier for all of us. Ben complained about the lack of garage space. Clara asked for another loan. I stood in the kitchen doorway, watching them plan my life without me, and something snapped. No, I said, quiet at first, then louder. No, this is my home. I bought it with my money, decorated it with my choices, keep it with my hands. You don't get to take it over. They stared, shocked. I'd never raised my voice like that. Anna started crying. You're kicking us out? Ben muttered about ingratitude. Robert tried to calm things. Ev, be reasonable. Clara looked betrayed. I didn't back down. I'm asking for respect, for boundaries, for the same consideration I gave you all your lives. The words poured out, years of swallowed hurts, of being invisible, of giving until empty. They listened, some with guilt, some with defensiveness. When I finished, the room was silent except for the wind chimes outside. They didn't leave that night. Change came slow and grudging. Anna cleaned more. Ben looked harder for work. Clara asked before borrowing. Robert came less. But the tension lingered, a low hum under everything. They resented the boundaries. I resented having to fight for them. Dignity held me through it, child. Quiet dignity, hard one. I locked my studio when I wasn't using it. I took the car keys with me. I said no and meant it. Some nights I cried alone on the balcony, heartbroken at how love could twist into expectation. But most nights I stood taller, knowing I'd claimed something precious. The right to my own space, my own peace. Emotional intensity ebbed and flowed. Arguments flared, then quieted. They stayed longer than temporary. But slowly, one by one, they began to leave, Anna to a new apartment with a friend, Ben to a job in another city, Clara to a shared studio space downtown. Robert found a girlfriend, visited even less. The penthouse grew quiet again, but different this time. The quiet of victory, hard-earned. I walked the rooms feeling the strength in my steps. I'd held my ground. I'd protected what was mine. But peace like that never lasts unbroken, child. Life has a way of testing what you've built. And when the final reckoning came, it wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, inevitable, and it changed everything. Child, quiet resolution don't come with trumpets or tears dried in a single night. It comes slow, like the way dawn creeps over the river outside my penthouse windows, turning black water to silver one shade at a time. After the storm of their return, the noise, the demands, the way they filled my carefully claimed space until it felt like it was slipping from my fingers again, things settled, but not into anything tidy or triumphant. They left, one by one, the way they'd come, Anna with her suitcases and a stiff hug, saying she'd found a better apartment share. Ben with his tools rattling in the truck bed, muttering about a job offer out of state. Clara with her canvases wrapped careful, eyes avoiding mine, as she promised to visit soon. Robert stopped coming altogether once he understood the door wouldn't open easy anymore. The silence that followed wasn't the pure, healing quiet I'd known in my first years here. It was a quieter quiet, scarred, watchful, but mine all the same. I walked through the rooms the morning after the last one left, touching surfaces that still held faint traces of them. A coffee ring on the side table, a forgotten hoodie draped over a chair, paint flecks on the balcony rail where Clara had worked in the sun. I cleaned slow, deliberate, wiping away the evidence of their presence like erasing chalk marks from a board. Not with anger, anger had burned itself out months before, but with a kind of solemn ceremony. This was me taking the space back inch by inch, breath by breath. When the last dish was washed and the last load of their laundry folded and boxed for pickup, I stood in the middle of the living room and felt the penthouse breathe with me again. Empty, yes, but empty in the way a church is empty, waiting, sacred, ready for whatever comes next. Some days the ache still catches me off guard. I'll be slicing tomatoes for a salad and remember how Anna used to steal them straight from the cutting board, laughing when I scolded her. Or I'll hear a truck backfire down on the street and think of Ben's heavy footsteps coming up the elevator. Clara's absence shows in the studio, my easel back by the window, but the light feels different without her quiet humming while she worked. Robert's ghost lingers in the armchair he favored, though I've recovered it in a soft gray that has nothing to do with his taste. Memories rise unbidden, sweet and bitter mixed, like coffee left too long on the burner. I don't fight them anymore. I let them come, sit with me a while, then watch them drift out the open balcony door on the evening breeze. Empowerment, child, isn't a crown you put on one day and wear forever gleaming. It's more like a muscle you learn to use after it's been asleep for decades, trembling at first, sore after effort, but growing stronger with each small lift. I feel it when I say no to invitations I don't want, when I spend an entire afternoon painting without guilt, when I lock the door at night knowing no one will knock expecting me to open it. Self-respect lives in the ordinary now, in choosing the music that plays, in buying flowers just because their color makes my heart lift, in going to bed when I'm tired instead of waiting up for someone who isn't coming home. These are small things, maybe, but they are mine, and no one can take them without my leave. The children call sometimes. Holidays, birthdays, the occasional Sunday when guilt or loneliness nudges them. Their voices are careful now, asking how I am before launching into their news. I listen, I respond, I even laugh when something's funny. But I don't fill the silences with offers of help or invitations to visit unless I truly want them here. They sense the change. Anna says I sound different, stronger, she means, though she doesn't say it direct. Ben sends photos of his new place like he's proving he's all right without me. Clara mails postcards from shows, her art selling slow but steady. I pin them to the fridge with magnets I bought on a trip to the coast, alone because I wanted to. We are connected still, blood and history binding us, but the tether is looser now, and I no longer fear it snapping. Robert sent a letter once, handwritten on plain paper. Apologies mostly, late and careful like he'd rehearsed them. He's with someone new, he wrote, someone who makes him happy. I read it twice, folded it neat, and put it in a drawer with other papers I don't need to look at again. I didn't write back. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't reopen wounds better left closed. Some doors, once shut firm, stay shut. I've made a life here that fits me like a well-worn coat, comfortable, familiar, chosen. Mornings begin with coffee on the balcony, watching barges move slow on the river, gulls wheeling overhead. I paint most days, not for shows or praise, just because color on canvas still feels like prayer. Evenings, I read or meet friends for supper, women my age who have walked similar roads, who understand without needing every detail. We laugh loud, talk honest, part ways lighter. Some nights I dance alone in the living room to old songs that make my hips remember youth. Some nights I sit in the dark with just the city lights and the hum of the refrigerator, content in my own company. There are moments, quiet, private ones, when the heartbreak rises sharp. A song on the radio we used to dance to in the kitchen. A recipe I pull out and realize I haven't made since the children were small. The way the penthouse feels too big sometimes, echoing with footsteps that aren't there. I let the sadness come. I don't rush it away. It's part of me, that sorrow, woven into the fabric of who I am now. But it doesn't own me anymore. It sits beside me like an old friend who visits but knows when to leave. Quiet peace, child, is what remains when the storm has passed and you're still standing. Not triumphant, not unbroken, just standing, breathing, whole in your own skin. I look out my windows at the river flowing steady to the sea and know that's me now. Moving forward, carrying everything that came before, the sacrifices, the erasures, the leaving and being left, the claiming and the holding firm, but no longer drowning in it. The current is gentle these days. I float more than I fight. Some evenings I sit with Mama's quilt over my knees, rocking slow, thinking about the girl I was in that Georgia farmhouse, dreaming dreams too big for the life laid out before her. I wish I could tell her it would hurt something fierce along the way, that love would demand more than she thought she had to give, that people she poured her soul into would one day walk away without looking back. But I'd also tell her she'd survive it. That one day she'd wake in a place all her own, with light pouring through windows she chose, and feel something close to peace. That strength doesn't always roar. It often whispers, steady and sure, until you realize it's been carrying you all along. There's no bow on this story, no tidy ending where everyone learns their lesson and comes running back with apologies and open arms. Life doesn't wrap up neat like that. The children live their lives, I live mine. Robert lives his. We intersect sometimes, holidays, maybe a grandchild's birthday down the road, but mostly we move in separate orbits. The heartache lingers, soft around the edges now, like a bruise that's faded but still tender if you press it. Yet here I am, in my penthouse high above the river, painting sunsets in colors I love, drinking tea from a cup no one else uses, sleeping diagonal across a bed that's all mine. Quiet resolution, child, looks like this. An old woman on her balcony at dusk, wind chimes singing soft, city lights beginning to blink on below, heart full of memories both sweet and sore, but beating steady all the same. Not fixed, not finished. Just peace enough to rest in,